Lucius Tarquin gasps for air in pitch blackness. Activating a light on his suit, Lucius sees jagged metal on all sides. The roof collapsed all around him, and somehow he survived. At least, he survived the quick death. There's no way out of this hole. At least, none that his tired eyes can discern in the dim illumination from his suit's emergency light. Resting his back against the still intact iron arch that saved his life in the collapse, Lucius coughs. This is his tomb, surrounded by an ancient structure that he would have loved to study, if he had the time. He chuckles at the thought, then leans his head against the cool metal. The air won't last long in this small enclosure. Shaking off the grim certainty of death, Lucius removes his personal comm and tries to contact Adalee or Mila or anybody on the surface, but the signal cannot penetrate the dense iron packed around him. No doubt they already assume he's dead. Lucius doesn't blame them. He would probably assume the same. Instead, he starts composing messages, just in case they decide to look for him. Just in case they find him. Welcome back for episode 17 of Errant Adventures. As always, I'm your game master and solo player, Steve Morrison. On this week's episode, Adalee races against time to help Lucius out of his predicament. Find out if she can move fast enough to save him on episode 17, Shot in the Dark. On the surface above, Adalee and Lieutenant Mila and the assembled Lodestar soldiers watch as the opening ramp that descended down into the Ascendancy spaceport collapses. Adalee rushes forward, screaming Lucius's name, and Lieutenant Mila is able to grab a hold of her and hold her back. It's not difficult for them, because Adalee is still very injured, and she almost collapses as she sort of propels herself forward. And Mila is there to grab a hold of her, keep her from rushing into the collapse, and she slowly lowers down to the ground, sobbing, again calling Lucius' name. Lieutenant Mila says, "I'm really sorry, Adalee. I don't think anybody could have survived that." And she says, "No, I won't believe it. It can't end like this. We were brought together by fate, by I don't know by what power, but our paths crossed for a reason, and it can't end like this." Lieutenant Mila shrugs and says, "I'm sorry. That's how these things go sometimes. People die, and it is a part of life." And Lieutenant Mila has a strange look on their face and says, "But I guess I don't really need to tell you about that. Look, Lucius was trying to find a ship. He was trying to save our lives, and he didn't make it. But we can keep going. And maybe by keeping going, we can make sure that we stop what the Ironhawks are doing in Veritas Sector, and that will honor Lucius's sacrifice." Adalee shrugs Lieutenant Mila off and slowly rises, a little bit unsteady, but she manages to maintain her footing. She takes a few steps forward as the collapse has now settled a little bit and approaches where the iron structure has collapsed inward, and there is now just chunks of debris blocking the way down. And she extends her hand and touches the fallen iron and closes her eyes. And she focuses with all of her power to try and feel if Lucius is still alive. Now, Adalee is a paragon, which gives her access to a number of abilities, some of which we've seen. But for this, she is going to tap into her empathic abilities to try and reach out and feel whether or not Lucius is still alive. And to do that, she's going to roll plus heart. Oh yes, Adalee has a full character sheet now. So she has an edge of 2, a heart of 3, an iron of 1, a shadow of 1, and a wits of 2. So she's rolling plus heart on this. She has the empath asset, which is going to give her hopefully a bonus to this if she succeeds. She's going to get some momentum and some additional stuff going forward if she succeeds. Here we go. First roll with Adalee. We have an 8 on the action die, and we've got a 2 and a 10 on the challenge dice for a weak hit. So on this weak hit, her visions are murky. So she's going to take plus 1 momentum, which is going to take her from the base level of 2 up to a momentum of 3. And I think Adalee senses his life deep within this iron structure, and she withdraws her hand for a moment. Her breath catches, and then she reaches out again, and it's like flickering in and out. And I think she is unsure if that's because of interference from just the sheer amount of mass that separates them, or if it's that Lucius is alive at the moment, but dying. So she is going to turn back to Lieutenant Mila and say, "Lieutenant, I can sense him. He's still alive in there. We have to do something." And Mila, they shake their head a little bit and just say, "What are we supposed to do? There's tons of iron between us and wherever you think Lucius might be." And she said, "I don't think he's in there and alive. I know he is. We have to do something. Maybe there's a place that's closer, but I swear on all of that iron behind me, we will find him and we will get him back." And she is going to swear that as an iron vow. So she is going to swear plus heart. She does not have a connection with Mila. Lucius does, but Adalee does not. So she's just rolling plus heart on this. All right, another 8 on the action die and a 6 and a 3 on the challenge dice for a strong hit. So Adalee is emboldened, and it is clear what they have to do next. So that's going to give us 2 momentum. Just take us up to 5 momentum. And we're going to go ahead and make this vow recover Lucius. And we're going to say it is a formidable vow because he is buried deep within the structure. And they don't exactly have the tools on them to enact a quick excavation. Adalee is clear on what has to happen next. And I think what that looks like is Query, the AI that she is carrying around, says, "Maybe I can be of help. Yes, most of the structure has collapsed, but you see there are those pillars around. They act as a sort of elemental power source. They draw in power from the elements and power the structure underneath. There may be a way to create some sort of repulsor effect to move some of this debris without needing any heavy equipment." And Adalee says, "That's wonderful. How do we do it?" Query says, "Well, I don't know. It's just a working theory, but maybe if you were to activate the pylons, I would be able to access them and I would be able to take some control over them." And Adalee says, "All right, then that's what we'll do." And she turns to Lieutenant Mila and says, "Lieutenant, I want you and your soldiers to spread out. We need to activate those pillars." Mila, I think, is momentarily taken aback by the strong, commanding tone that Adalee takes with them, and then sort of half shrugs and turns and issues orders to the soldiers to spread out. Now, Adalee is going to head towards one of the pylons herself. I think she still has a couple of those soldiers with her, and they are offering her support. But I think whereas before she was having difficulty moving around on her own two legs, I think a couple of things. First of all, I think there may be some sort of like fast healing that she does as a paragon, just because she is suffused with this ascendancy power. And I think maybe now that she has a driving sort of goal, that is helping her push beyond the limits of maybe what she should be doing. So she is going to head off towards one of the pillars and is going to try and gather some information on the pillar and how it's activated. So she's going to do some investigation, maybe ask query as well. And she also has the haunted asset, which is you are haunted by the spirit of someone whose death you caused or mourn, or both. When you make a move to call upon their insight, add +1. On a weak hit, also endure stress, -1. On a strong hit with a match, mark 1 tick on your bond's legacy track. So I'm using this to represent her connection with Warden, the Ascendancy AI that she absorbed the knowledge of. Though Warden was a separate entity that Lucius interacted with and then shut down the ship as they were leaving, I think part of that core of that Ascendancy ship contained some sort of like image or copy or shadow of Warden that is part of the core that Adalee absorbed. And so she has this connection to Warden, even though the actual AI has shut down on the ship that they abandoned. She has some sort of like ghost image in her mind that she can connect with. And I think that's representative of her connection with the core. So I'm going to add that +1 on this gather information roll because she is using some of her connection with that ascendancy core in order to try and gain some more information about these pillars. I think she also has a dangerous connection with query. And so she's going to leverage that as well to try and get a little bit more information from query. So that's going to be +1 from query, +1 for the haunted, and plus wits, which is +2 for Adalee. So we're rolling at +4 on this gather information. Ooh, I'm glad we got that +4. So we've got a 5 on the action die. We've got a 4 and a 2 on the challenge dice for a strong hit. So you discover something helpful and specific. The path you must follow or action you must take to make progress is made clear. Envision what you learn, then take +2 momentum. So that gives us 7 momentum, and we're going to go, I think, to the oracles, and we're going to roll on action and theme to see what this important information that Adalee discovers is. So for the action is 100, withdraw, and the theme is 85, withdraw superstition. Okay, so here is what it is. So Adalee, having this connection with the Ascendancy core and able to talk to query, realizes that what the Lodestar soldiers might take as magic and, some sort of supernatural force that she is able to wield is not actually anything more than a deeper understanding of the physics and the realities of the physical world and the appropriate application of energy to affect the real world, if you will. And so I think what she, in this conversation with query and through asking the core that is fused inside of her about these ascendancy pylons, is that she discovers even more so that the ascendancy just was able to delve even further into the building blocks of reality and that they were able to find ways to, through certain resonances and other manipulations, could rearrange those building blocks. And so these pylons, when activated, are able to draw in energy from the planet around them, from wind, and from the heat in the earth, and all of these things, the heat of the sun, and is able to turn those things into energy, which can then be redirected through the pylons to perform various tasks. So Adalee has this understanding and is able to, I think, instruct the other soldiers how to use the controls at each pylon to activate these various energy absorption tools so that the pylons begin charging. And as she does that, I think she needs to find the specific spot. And because her feeling of where Lucius was, I think that doesn't give her an exact location of where to focus this energy. So she is going to need to figure that out as well. And I think to do that, I think she's actually going to connect herself energetically with these pylons to amplify the area of her empathic abilities so that she can get a better sense of where Lucius is located in this collapsed facility. And to do that, I think it's going to be plus heart again as it's resolve. Like she's drawing in this energy, she's focusing on it and pushing it out again. And so we're going to roll plus heart on this. All right, so we've got 7 on the action die. We've got an 8 and a 10 on the challenge dice for a miss. So I think she starts drawing in this power, and I think there's some sort of feedback that comes through. And I think she defeated Demetrius in the vault last time. So I don't think that he comes back. I think he's gone. But I think there is probably some security feature in the pylons that prevent them from being linked to a person in this way. That makes sense to me. So Adalee is absorbing this energy and trying to use it to push her mind out further so that she's able to zero in on where Lucius is located. And as she does so, I think the pylons all start shutting down. It's a safety feature. And she feels like she could take the pressure of all this energy, but that it might burn her out. But I think she doesn't care. And so she's trying to focus on that. But the pylons are set to power down before anything like that could happen. I think when they do power down, she swears and yells at the soldiers to start them up again. And the pylons are stuck in a dormant mode where they are no longer able to activate in the same way. And I think Adalee is somewhat frustrated at being foiled in this way. And so she is going to have to figure out a different way forward. So she's going to cast around, and I'm going to roll on descriptor and focus to see what she sees around this area. 89, strange. And the focus, 22, strange debris. Okay. There's ship debris, so that makes sense. It's a spaceport. Maybe some of the Ascendancy ships were leaving and got destroyed. We don't know if whatever caused the downfall of the Ascendancy, if it happened on a local level in maybe their capital and things just sort of degraded from there, or if it covered the entire forge. And therefore, all of these ships and research facilities and all these places all around the forge were all impacted simultaneously. Well, you know what? Let's ask the Oracle. So we've got strange debris, And maybe this will help clarify for us what it is. So, is this strange debris remnants of Ascendancy ships? I think it's 50-50. So 51 or greater, yes, it is. They are remnants of Ascendancy ships. 92. Okay, so a definitive yes. But I think because it's strange debris as opposed to being like recognizable ships, I think maybe these are like world ships. They were colony ships that were maybe even bringing Ascendancy people to Viridian, or maybe they were leaving Viridian, but they are these massive structures that are all twisted up. And I think this is where the strange nature of them is, that they look like they've been melted and like twisted around and like crumpled up a little bit. And they are lying all around the spaceport. And Adalee has to like really look at them because they've probably been overgrown with moss and like trees and all sorts of stuff. And like she really starts to look at them and realizes that these are ships. And then she's like, okay, so if the pylons are locked, maybe there is a power core or there's some equipment in one of these ruins, in one of these wrecks, that we can use to move some of this stuff. There has to be something. And so she is going to send Lieutenant Mila and the others searching through a couple of the wrecks, and she's going to go into another one. So again, I think this is going to be securing an advantage because she's looking for actual technology that she can use. And so we're doing this with wits. So it's expertise, focus, observation. She's looking around for any sort of technology that might be of use. So rolling plus wits. Let's see what she finds. Oh yeah, we got an 8 on the action die. We've got a 4 and a 2 on the challenge dice for a strong hit. So she gets to take 2 more momentum, which is taking her up to 9, and is going to get to add +1 to her next move. So I think she finds some sort of cargo moving. You know what? The vault had mechs that were cargo carrying mechs that Lucius and Adalee and the Lodestar soldiers had to fight. So maybe there are some more of those that she finds, and she finds a couple that are intact. And so she is able to bring some of the Lodestar soldiers to this particular wreck, and they are able to move them out of the wreck and towards the spot that generally where she thinks it is. And I think this is just going to be a face danger as she guides them there. And I think it is probably going to be wits again, as she's basically making her best guess based off of what she sensed before of where Lucius might be located. So we're going to roll +2 on this. We get a +1 because of our strong hit on the secure and advantage. So it's +3 on this face danger to try and get the mechs to the right place. So we've got 8 on the action die. I've got a 6 and a 9 on the challenge dice. So it is a weak hit. So we succeed, but at a troublesome cost. So they start making their way through the debris, and these mechs are basically like tearing away chunks of iron from the roof that has collapsed in. But I think it takes more time than Adalee hopes for. So we're going to lose a momentum. It's just going to take us down to 8 momentum as this is continuing to happen. But I think we can mark our first progress on here. So it is a formidable vow. So it's going to be 1 box filled. Now, Lucius is buried who knows how deep. So these mechs are going to continue forcing their way down. I think that's just going to take time. So the question is there something that Adalee can do to try and speed up the process? And I think there is. So she, as part of her Paragon ability, she can manipulate not only the structure of matter, but she can force things to move around. She's a kinetic, is her other asset. And so I think she is going to use her kinetic ability to try and lift pieces of rubble out and away. So she's basically acting like another mech as she does this. And to do that, she is going to focus and move objects. I'm going to say this is definitely a risky situation, not necessarily for her, but for Lucius. And so she is drawing on her powers. She's going to add +2, but she is also going to lose a momentum as she does that. So that's going to take it down to 7 momentum. But she is going to, I think, with resolve again, with heart, she is focusing. So it's +3, +2 for her kinetic ability. So we're rolling +5 on this. Oh, yeah. We got an 11 on the action die, and we've got a 1 and a 7 on the challenge dice for a strong hit. So successful, and we take +1 momentum. So that's going to give us another tick of progress for recovering Lucius. Now we see Adalee like focusing, and she's like lifting up pieces of metal and is casting them aside. And these mechs are doing the same as well. And they're probably making a lot of noise. Now, I wonder if there is a likelihood that something else around here might be interested in what they're doing. So I'm going to ask the Oracle on this. I think it is almost certain that there is something else around that is going to take notice of what they're doing. So 11 or greater, yes, something else will take notice. 43, yep, absolutely. So there is something else that takes notice. Is that something else a creature or creatures? I think it's likely. So we're going to say 26 or greater on this one. 15. So no, it's not a creature. Is it something ascendancy related? Maybe some sort of construct. I mean, we've seen enough AI already that it's entirely possible that there's another AI. So is it another ascendancy thing, whether it be a device or something else? I think, again, I'm going to go 50-50 on this one. So 51 or greater, yes, it's an ascendancy thing, and we'll figure it out from there. 20, so no. All right, I think there was something that the Ironhawks left behind when they left Viridian. After Lucius and Adalee escaped with the Order survivors the first time around, the Ironhawks spent some time probably investigating, trying to find if there were any others hiding out here, and when they didn't find anyone else, they probably left. But I bet they also left some sort of drone or something like that that was able to continue investigating and keeping an eye on the planet just in case they missed something or somebody came back. And I think what that represents here is they went down a while ago. I think it took them several hours to go investigate the vault and then to come here. And so they've probably been like crashed on the planet for about half a day at this point. And I think there is an Ironhawk drone that has been watching them and that has been sending messages, maybe to like a satellite or something in orbit. Now, we know because of the heralds that long distance communication is not a thing in this world. So that's why the heralds exist, is to carry information from one star system to another. So I don't think that this drone is necessarily sending signals to an Ironhawk ship that is far away. What I think actually is the case here is that the Ironhawks left a drone and probably some sort of automated attack system. Maybe some additional, like there was a scanner drone that was just basically orbiting the planet and scanning for activity. And then maybe there are a number of attack drones that can be activated if the scanner detects something and sent in. So I think Adalee is using her Paragon powers to toss chunks of iron around And the Lodestar soldiers are using these Ascendancy mechs to move some of the debris, and this scanner drone picks up on this activity. Probably has been watching them for a while. And I think some of these attack drones swoop in and start firing. Now, I think Lieutenant Mila is not super taken by surprise on this. I think they are well accustomed to the procedures of the Ironhawks to like leave these sorts of drones behind, and maybe has set up a couple of the Lodestar soldiers to keep a watch for these sorts of things. So I don't think we necessarily need to go into a full out combat so much as to see how this affects the progress. So I think Adalee and those soldiers who are controlling the mechs are continuing to work as these drones are coming in and attacking. But depending on how the battle goes is going to determine how successful they are in continuing to delve through this debris. So we're going to roll on our battle. We're going to envision our objective and roll. I think this is going to be plus heart for Adalee because she is fighting depending on companions. So we're going to roll plus heart, which is +3. Here we go. Got a 4 on the action die. We've got a 2 and a 6 on the challenge dice for a weak hit, which is you achieve your objective, but not without cost. Pay the price. All right, so I think one of the mechs is destroyed, or at least damaged. So they are able to continue making progress, which is going to garner us another progress on our vow, but one of the mechs is damaged. And so I think they're down to like one mech and Adalee's Paragon powers. And I think her ability to continue using her Paragon powers again and again to like lift these massive pieces of debris, it's not feasible for her to continue doing so. So I think after the battle, she kind of slumps down and has to rest a little bit. The remaining mech continues to work, and Mila comes over and kind of sort of crouches down in front of Adalee and says, "We've made some progress, but I don't think that you can continue doing what you're doing. I'm a little worried about you." And Adalee looks up at them with this look of determination in her eyes, and she's probably got blood running down her nose, and she looks pale and exhausted. And I think Query says as well, I think you should listen to the human. It's not really looking good on you. You've channeled a lot of power today, and I don't know that you can continue without your, pardon me for saying, your feeble human parts from just collapsing." Adalee says, "All right, what do you suggest?" And Mila says, "We'll keep working. You should rest." And Query says, "There might be more technology that we can use in one of those wrecks. If you take me in and interface me with the control panel, I will be able to tell you what the cargo loads of those ships are." And I think Mila has this concerned look on their face as they sort of slightly shake their head. And Adalee shrugs and says, "All right, well, let's see what we can find." "No, Lieutenant, you keep working." She raises a hand as they look like they're going to protest. And Adalee says, "We've got to keep working. I don't know how long we have, but I can't imagine it's very long." And she is going to struggle to her feet and make her way towards the wreck where they discovered the first mechs. And while she's there, I think she is going to go ahead and try to, with some expertise, attach Query to the control circuits of this twisted up wreck of an Ascendancy ship. And we don't know what that's going to do. So this is going to be plus wits. Here we go. Oh, look at that. So I've got 7 on the action die. I've got double 1s on the challenge dice for a strong hit and an opportunity. So the strong hit gives us 1 momentum for that face danger. So our momentum goes up to 9. And Adalee is able to connect Query into the control matrix of this crashed Ascendancy ship, and Query says, well, unfortunately, this ship won't fly, but you probably could tell that from the outside. Let me look around a bit. Oh, this is interesting. And a number of those drones that they've seen, the small, like, circular orb drones, start to fly out. I think the Lodestar soldiers tense up a little bit, and then they start using their lasers to help excavate a little bit and cut some of the pieces into smaller chunks so that it's easier for the one remaining mech to move those out of the way rather than trying to like grab onto something and cut through. And I think that's going to represent some extra progress. And that's our opportunity. So we get 2 progress off of that. So that takes us up to 5 out of 10 on this vow. And Adalee is going to look around, I think, for something else that can help. So she's going to, again, I think, try to gather some information and see if she can discover anything from this wreckage. Plus wits. So 6 on the action die, a 2 and a 7 on the challenge dice for a weak hit. So it provides a new insight, but also introduces a complication. What do we think that complication is? I'm going to roll on, again, the action and theme to see what comes up. 65 on the action. Mourn. 9. Mourn bond. Okay, here's the complication. While Query is going through the computer system of this Ascendancy wreck, I think it was some sort of colony ship or some sort of like deep space ship that they were boarding to try and escape whatever this cataclysm was that ended up toppling the Ascendancy. And I think as Query is going through the data files, a lot of which are corrupted, but there's enough there that she is able to piece together that the people that she was waiting for to return were aboard this ship and died when it crashed. Whatever happened that caused the ship to like melt and twist and crumple, whatever that cataclysm that swept through here, they died and they never made it off planet and they were never going to come back. And Query, I think, starts to go on the fritz a little bit and is like, but they said they would come back. Why didn't they come back? They were here? They died? I don't understand. They couldn't have died. They said they would come back. And like she falls into this feedback loop. And Adalee, listening to this and understanding the weight of pain that even this artificial intelligence is feeling, is like, Query, wait. I understand the pain that you're feeling. I have lost many people in my life, many people who were close to me, who are dear to me, but this is not the end. It is not the end for your friends, and it's not the end for my friends. That's why I'm working so hard to try and save Lucius, because there are so many lives that I couldn't save. But if I can save his, if I can save just one, then well, it's not worth it, but it's better. Life is better when we try to save others. And it helps us remember. It helps us remember those that we lost. And it helps us remember that there are many more out there who have lives and who deserve to be helped. Query, I know you hurt because your friends left you and because they didn't come back. But they didn't come back not because they didn't love you and they didn't want to come back. It's just sometimes that's what life is. It's broken promises. It's unfulfilled hopes. But it doesn't have to be that way. Not always. I don't know what the future holds. Nobody does. But I know this. I'm not alone anymore. You're not alone anymore. And if we help each other, we have a chance to remember and to honor those that we've lost. And we have a chance to help others. Will you help me, Query? Will you help me save Lucius? And Adalee's going to try and compel, using heart again, to try and talk Query through this feedback loop that she has fallen into. So we're going to roll plus heart on this compel and hope that Adalee is able to get through and connect to Query a little bit. So we've got an 8 on the action die. We've got a 7 and a 9 on the challenge dice for a weak hit. As above, but their agreement comes with a demand or complication. Envision their counteroffer. Oh dear. I know exactly what their counteroffer is. Query says, I understand. I know what you're saying, but I am alone. You hold pieces of my people, but you're not really one of us. You're more human than ascendancy. But that piece that you hold, it is part of us. And I don't want to be alone anymore. Will you take me too, so that I can join with the piece that is in you? And Adalee says, yes, I will. And she reaches out and takes hold of the crystal that holds Query and is going to focus her power into it and is going to attempt to absorb the core that holds Query's consciousness and allow her to join with the essence of Warden that also resides in Adalee. And that's going to be face danger. So we're going to roll plus heart again. I think it's pure resolve as she pours her power into this device to try and draw the remnants of this AI into herself to give Query peace. So here we go. Roll plus heart. This is plus 3. Got a 5 on the action die. Got a 1 and a 5 on the challenge dice for a weak hit. Succeed, but at a troublesome cost. So she's able to absorb the core, but I think it is going to knock her spirit down. I've got her health at 2 out of 5 to represent her injured state. I think her spirit was at 5 after the, elation of having defeated Demetrius a second time and surviving. So her spirit is going to drop down to 4 out of 5, and she is able to absorb the core of Query. And again, this gives her an additional amount of power. It is another piece in understanding those building blocks of creation that the Ascendancy were able to manipulate. And so she is just a little bit stronger as a paragon. And I think that's going to represent another progress on her search, as she doesn't have to contend with Query trying to be distracted by her own pursuit of her friends. Now that that's resolved, Query has merged with the essence, the remainder of Warden, and together they are going to be this ascendancy presence within Adalee. So we're at 6 out of 10 progress, and Adalee is going to leave. She is going to return, and she sees where these drones have carved out a bunch of this space. And I think as she approaches, she starts to sense Lucius once again. And she senses this time very clearly that he is starting to grow weak. And I think she knows in that moment that they're not going to be able to cut through in time. And Adalee is going to use her Paragon power. She's going to pour everything she has into trying to reach into the molecular structure of the iron debris that is surrounding Lucius, and she is going to try and shape it away from him so that she creates a path. And to do that, she's going to go ahead and face danger with Heart again, and is going to lose a momentum as she is going to use her kinetic abilities to boost her power. So this is going to be +5. Got a 7 on the action die. We've got a 6 and a 9 on the challenge dice for a weak hit. So she's successful, which is going to give her another mark of progress, but is going to take another hit to her spirit as she is essentially draining the essence of her life and pouring it into this power as she is trying to tear away the debris that is blocking Lucius's escape. And I think at this point, we're going to try and fulfill our vow. So we're sitting at 7 out of 10 progress. We're going to roll the challenge dice, and we're going to see what happens. All right, so we've got progress of 7, and I've got a challenge dice of 6 and 1 for a strong hit. The vow is fulfilled. Mark a reward on the quest legacy track per the vow's rank. So it's going to be 1 box because it is a formidable vow, which is great because it gives Adalee some XP. And she is able to pour all of her energy into shaping a path through the iron debris to where Lucius is. Lucius Tarquin is sitting in darkness. The light on his suit is faint. His breathing is shallow. He's having a hard time maintaining consciousness. As he's blinking away the urge to just give in, to just go to sleep, all of a sudden, the iron wall of debris in front of him begins to melt. The iron drips away as it curls back like it's being peeled away. And all of a sudden, light pours in through this. Light and fresh air fill this small enclosed space where Lucius thought he was going to die. He blinks against the bright sunlight that's now filling his eyes. And as he does so, he sees the outline of a figure approaching. As his eyes adjust to the light, he faintly asks, Are you an angel? Is this death? And then he blinks a little bit, and he hears a woman laugh, and a hand reaches down, which he grabs hold of. All of a sudden, Adalee is crouching in front of him. There are tears in her eyes. She's smiling, and she pulls him into a fierce hug. Thanks for listening to Errant Adventures. If you enjoyed the show, please tell your friends. Tell anyone you can. Shout it from the rooftops even. And if you haven't already, please go ahead and rate and review the show on your favorite podcast app. It really does help others find me. If you want to interact with me, my handle on Instagram and Twitter is @ErrantSolopod, or you can email me at errantsolopod@gmail.com. I also post short fiction and campaign-related materials on my website, errantadventurespod.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.